The sixth point is we want to mention is tilawat al-Quran, to engage in the recitation of Quran as one amazing good deed that we can do in these special days of the month of Dhul Hijjah, this most virtuous of months, with this special time to engage in the recitation of Quran. This is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ says that it is through this book, the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates a people. And it is also through this book, the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala debases another people because of their relationship with this Quran. Don't leave off this Quran, it will go away from you. Recite this Quran. Recite it because it would come on the day of judgment as an intercessor to intercede on your behalf. And the Prophet ﷺ then mentions specific surahs that would intercede for its reciter on the day of judgment. The one who would love the surah and recite it in this dunya. For example, Surah Al-Mulk is one of the surahs that is mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ that would intercede for its companions. Now, who's a companion of Surah Al-Mulk? The one who memorizes it, the one who loves the surah, the one who knows the meaning of the surah, the one who recites it often, the one who recites the surah often. This is the companion of the surah. And the surah would intercede for its companions on the day of judgment. So recite Quran. The Prophet ﷺ says that afwan, each letter of the Quran that we recite is a blessing, a thawab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We receive a blessing and a thawab from Allah for each letter of the Quran that we recite. And he said, by way of example, when we recite Alif Lam Mim, we don't receive one blessing or one thawab, but for Alif we receive a thawab, for Lam we receive another thawab, and for Mim we receive another thawab. This is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the limitless bounties and blessings that He bestows upon us. This Quran is the final book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the manual of operation for us in our lives. This is a guide of operation, or the operation guide for us in our lives, to tell us how we should live our lives. And we need to recite it, to have this ongoing relationship with the Quran, to memorize this Quran, to study it, to live it. And so in these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, renew this relationship with the Quran, so that it would remain a part of our life. It will remain a companion for us every day for the rest of the year. And when we commit ourselves to reciting this Quran in these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed, and in this month of Dhul Hijjah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made sacred, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us so that we will continue to do it for the rest of the days of our lives. And so Quran and our relationship with the Quran during this special time of the month of Dhul Hijjah. The seventh virtue that we want to mention, a good deed that we should do, is dua. Dua. To engage profusely in dua, in supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ, in an amazing hadith that is narrated by Sahih Bukhari, among the collectors of hadith that have narrated this specific hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ad-du'a mukhul ibadah." The dua is the essence of worship. Dua, supplication, is the essence of worship. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah." Dua is worship. That is worship, dua. Because the dua that we make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, really it's an indication of our inner state, our inner reality. If we want to know the state of our inner reality, listen to our dua. Listen to the words of our dua. It tells us who and what we are. What are the things we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for? especially when we're by ourselves, alone, just us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're making dua to Allah, that sincere dua, listen to ourselves, and we would get an indication of our true inner state. And then we should improve that state to make it pure for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves good deeds in these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And we do all the deeds that we've mentioned so far. And 6 specific things we've mentioned. All of them or some of them. And then we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua. Do we think that Allah would reject our dua? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most merciful. We do all of these good deeds and we turn to Allah in supplication to Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to us and accepts our dua. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised the believers to respond to their dua. And so this is a time for us to turn to Allah and busy ourselves in dua and cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua. In this period of time, for whatever we want, turn to Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can give us whatever we want, whatever we need, and He is the one who can grant us forgiveness, and He is the one who can bless us, and He is the one who can keep us on the straight path and the Sirat al-Mustaqim, and He is the one who can bless us with Jannat al-Firdaus in the Akhirah and keep us away from the punishment of hellfire. And that is our dua for each and every one of us in these special days of the month of Dhul Hijjah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and keep us united in this dunya and reunite us in His Jannah in the Akhirah. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.